Hey everyone, Rhino here. I wanted to take this time to tell you about a personal podcast that I started called Podcast Rangers, a Power Rangers podcast. And yes, it is about Power Rangers. And yes, I did make that title up. It's absurd, but SEO search, I don't know, whatever. I'm hoping other Power Ranger fans will cue into it and stuff like that. And I know some of you are not here for the Power Ranger stuff, and that's okay too. I just want to let you know that this YouTube channel is going to be a little bit of everything that I love in life. So it won't just be Power Rangers. You'll still get plenty of corgis, corgi puppets, book reviews, whatever I'm eating, whatever I do. I don't know. It's basically just a journal for me. So and I appreciate every single one of you that even takes a moment to stop by and say hi or watch anything, any of that stuff. I know it's just a lot of me rambling, but thank you very much. But I am an adult Power Rangers fan. I have been a fan since the very first episode in 1993, and I've got some other friends who are adult Power Ranger fans, and I always look forward to like getting together with them, sometimes around convention time or anything, and just like talking about it. And then there's a couple of Power Ranger podcasts that I do listen to, and I feel like I've always been talking to the podcasts but not being on it. So I was like, I've got some stuff that I feel like I want to say. Like, I love talking about this. So a friend of mine, Ken, and I got together and we started this podcast. So I in an attempt to make it I wanted it to be a safe space for anybody that was a fan of the show. Whether you've seen one episode, 100 episodes, every episode, one episode 100 times, whatever, it's somewhere that anybody can kind of tune in. I wanted to keep it very discussion-based, so it's going to be stuff like favorite suits, favorite seasons, top Rangers, lows in the franchise, a rewatch of the movie, stuff like that. Stuff that you could kind of pick up at any point in time and hopefully will age well. I don't know. Who knows? But that was the intent, because there's a lot of podcasts out there. There are a lot of like rewatch podcasts that do that so well, and there's a lot of great people that keep up on the Power Rangers news and stuff, and they are doing just an awesome job with that. So, and that is something I know I cannot compete with, and it's not about competing. It's about just broadening this place and letting, like I said, creating that safe space for anybody to come in and have a conversation about the show. So, if you are a fan, I hope that you will give it a listen. If you're just a casual fan, I hope you'll give it a listen. And if you're somebody who's never seen the show before, I don't know, you can listen to me ramble about it for a little bit if you want. That's cool too. And if it's not for you, that's okay too. Like I said, none of those other videos are going to go away. It'll all be here for that. So this is an audio only podcast because my friend Ken is a little camera shy. I'm hoping someday I can get him to do the video part of it, but we'll see when time comes. But I am going to upload those audio only episodes to my YouTube channel, just because I feel like I know there are some people out there who do just listen to podcasts through YouTube, so I didn't want to exclude them. And just, again, it's like a niche thing, so you want to find anybody and have that conversation. And like I said, I love talking about Power Rangers, so I want to talk about it with anybody who wants to talk about it, and I'm going to try and find people wherever I can. So what I'll try and do is a little video intro before every one of the episodes, just to make it like a little bit visually interesting, right? And just kind of give you a summary of what it's about, and then you can say like, oh, this sounds interesting or not, and whatever. And then I would love comments and constructive criticism and stuff like that. So I would really appreciate that. And I thank everybody who has taken the time to listen and watch anything that I have done. And I will continue to thank you until the end of time, because it means the world to me. So I'm going to tack the first episode of the podcast onto the end of this video. And in this episode, it's Ken and myself just kind of explaining who we are, our background with Power Rangers, what it means to us, and what we hope to accomplish with the podcast. So check it out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And thank you everyone for watching and listening. I'm Rhino.
I'm Ken.
And we are the Podcast
Rangers.
Wow.
Sorry.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Again, I am Rhino, joined by my co-host,
Ken.
Yes, last name's redacted for whatever reason. I just feel like
many reasons.
We're friendly, so we're just on
a first name basis.
Yeah. I thought we could take episode 1 of the Podcast Rangers. I keep calling it the Podcast Rangers.
Just Podcast
Rangers.
No,
because it's Power
We're not the
Rangers.
reboot yet. We're
Not
not
yet, not yet,
Not
no.
the Podcast Rangers.
No, not yet. That's when the funding
Michael Bay
comes
takes
through and
over.
everything. Yeah. No, I thought we could do just a quick episode, just an introduction about who we are, what we like about Power Rangers, and what we kind of hope to accomplish with this podcast. Like, why would you keep listening to this?
To prepare you, almost, some might say.
Well, I've listened to some other Power Ranger podcasts. I listened to the Grid by Morphin Legacy, is really the one I listen to. There's Ranger Liz on YouTube does some
Ranger Liz.
weekend review. You remember our time at
Ranger Stop?
and Power Morphicon. We've actually been there as well. We've traveled the country.
Very friendly.
Ranger Liz and I. No, yeah, we traded vests at the last. Oh my gosh! Now I'm getting them all confused. Ranger Stop. Yeah. Well, because PMC is coming up, so I keep thinking about that. We'll talk about all that in a little bit, and then
We have a lot to cover.
Yeah.
In case you're wondering.
The Ranger Command Power Hour, I believe that is the other one. I feel really bad not knowing the name, so I am casually looking this up as I am super prepared.
He's not casually. He's very vehemently searching online right now.
But anyway, yeah, Ranger Command Power Hour, who Trekkie B47 is the host of. Eric, who is a really awesome person too. Well, these people I've met along the way because of the internet. You may have heard of it and whatnot. Just really
the World
awesome
Wide
people.
Web.
But I like how they have taken their love of things and talked about it. And I feel like I've just been really wanting to talk about Power Rangers with somebody. And I was like, and I'm sure there are other people out there in the world who are like, I'm an adult. I just want to have this adult conversation about Power Rangers.
Maybe not have a conversation. Maybe they just want to listen to people have a conversation.
Yeah, that could be it too. But I think it's important to note that I think as we will discuss news, I don't think that we're going to attempt to be essentially like a breaking news podcast. It's not going to be like a new thing comes out. When it comes out, we'll talk about it. But it won't be one of those like maybe on one of our social media accounts you could we'll obviously say
you
something
might
about
see
it, talk
something
about it. Yeah, like obviously we're going to report on all things Power Rangers, but I think I'd like to keep it we're going to be a discussion based. It's just so whenever there is news, we're just going to talk about it. But we're not only going to do the podcast when there's news. I think we could do other fun topics like what we feel like is the best season and why. And I've actually got a couple of fun, like we're gonna do like a bracket challenge at some point.
Motion.
Yes, I am. For those of you who can't actually see me,
For the video listeners, this will be really
which
good.
we don't have. You refuse to do the video. He's got a face for radio, folks.
That's
so.
that my career has chosen this life for me.
Yes. Well,
not the hero you deserve, but it's the hero you get.
yeah. Also, is there something about secret identities? Is that where we're kind of trying to keep in theme here?
You know what?
Stuff,
That's probably it.
Something. We're you know what? We're starting with the audio. Someday
we'll see where we go.
Yeah, we'll see where we go for that. But no, I thought we got some bracket challenges coming up where we're gonna. It's like an elimination challenge to find out what we think will come out to be like the best, suit design, stuff like that. We'll obviously talk about like other seasons, retrospectives. That's what I mean here.
Retroactively changing all of Power Rangers.
I just want it to be a thing whether you've watched one episode or every episode. We want to make this a safe space for some discussion in regards
approachable
to this. Yeah.
I think is the
accessible.
There
Approachable.
You go.
I feel like we're about
approachable,
to start a song and Mary Poppins.
all inclusive,
responsible. Like we are on our way to singing a song here, but
you're approachable, responsible.
We're also, as we go, I am very open to suggestions about topics and things people might want to hear us discuss about. Getting that feedback from people would be great out there. So definitely, I want this to be as interactive as possible. I think we'll have guests at some point. Various people will rope in from our lives. We'll be
people
forced
who are
into this.
Experienced with Power Rangers. Some people who are not experienced with Power Rangers. I think it's. So if you think of how accessible Power Rangers is, or kind of like how all-inclusive they are, might be beneficial for us to be all-inclusive in our podcast.
Yeah.
My high-pitched voice.
Yeah, you went really high. Like it wasn't just like a generally accepted thing.
Super noticeable.
No, I just hate all people and all things, and I want to be in a room alone.
I mean, my
just
sunny disposition has taught me many things, nothing of which learned by Power Rangers.
I also don't think I'm gonna have like I'm sure it'll be like a set day of the week, and whether it's bi-weekly or weekly, haven't figured that out yet either. We'll know soon, but I think we're just gonna record as we go. And I've always been this firm believer that like podcast is such a free flowing thing. Like when people are like, okay, you're guaranteed an episode every Tuesday. I'm like, okay, well it's like that's. We live by TV in those senses where you're like, okay, well, this show is on every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And you're like, okay. But I feel like podcasts could kind of be like whenever you're subscribed to it, I would hope. So you kind of are just going to get it whenever it comes out.
Please subscribe.
I don't want to wait, Yeah, well, we'll get there. I guess we're not off to a great start here.
That makes sense. Like we're going to talk about things when things pop up, but also when things kind of strike us to be like, hey, I want to talk about this. But also we have careers and
career. What a strong word.
Well, I'm an adult.
Yeah.
I'm an adult who likes Power Rangers, and I'm willing to admit it. See the dulcet tones versus the high pitch.
That's what he says every time he clicks the buy in the Amazon in card is, I have a career. I can do this.
I have expendable income.
I'm allowed.
Blaze is mine.
So I think it'd be fun to start with like our history of Power Rangers. So Ken, tell me, when did you start watching Power Rangers? Do you remember the first time you saw a Power Ranger?
I do remember when I saw...
I have, just so everyone knows, I have 2 corgis, and if you are not familiar with corgis, they are very vocal animals, and if a breeze goes through outside, we will be alerted to it. So every now and then you might hear dogs barking in the background. Yeah, so I apologize.
So I remember the first time I saw Power Rangers was the first episode. I did watch that. I remember having to take out the garbage during the middle of that episode. So like when the Rangers morphed, my mom was like, take out the garbage. And I was like, oh, Mom.
You became the kid from Galaxy Quest?
I was like, oh. Yeah, I did.
I cannot understate the importance of this.
So I definitely remember that. And I was kind of hooked at that point. And I remember like kind of those little weird shops in upstate New York where like you could kind of buy kind of like bootleg stuff. They were selling bootleg Power Rangers before the Power Rangers like flip head toys came out. And I remember when the flip heads came out, I got like almost the full set that Christmas and had to go on a road trip the day after Christmas with my dad. And I could not bring my toys that I got on Christmas.
Isn't that the hardest when you're a kid?
But when I got back,
adult even,
I had the blue and yellow Rangers, which I was missing, which if you remember when those toys came out, like it was hard to find the entire set. Like people were fighting, right?
Yeah.
Like that was like Tickle Me Elmo prior to Tickle Me Elmo.
Oh, I got lucky. My uncle had picked up like he was working part-time at a Bradley's, if you remember those stores. If you're from the Northeast, I believe they no longer exist.
Similar to a Caldor, maybe?
I don't even know what to call it. It was like baby Target, but Target couldn't get it together and died. I got lucky in that first year that Power Rangers was on. Because my birthday is January 1st, so I'm very close to Christmas.
We both get swindled in terms of birthday.
Yeah, and so I got lucky though because this was my godfather too. So I got the Megazord. Can you believe that? So my brother and I each for Christmas got my brother got the Red Ranger, those taller 6-inch I think they were.
They were like 8-inch. I think.
Yeah, they were the big triangle box ones, and he got that one and I got the blue one. And then my uncle was like, "And here's your birthday present." I was like, "What?" I remember like putting it together and taking it apart 10 times in a row without even opening the directions. And my mom was like, "How did you do that?" And I was like, "The show, mother.
You're Rain Man."
Yeah.
So when I was
147 matches.
We have very different experiences growing up because my birthday present was not as good as my Christmas present because I'm a week before Christmas, whereas you're after.
Yeah. I get the things people were too lazy to return.
They're like,
you get
they were on sale. Yeah. Mine were like
socks.
My mom was like, "Why don't you open one of your Christmas presents?"
And you'd be like, "It's Power Rangers soap."
I have a Nintendo game. Did you give me a Nintendo for Christmas, Mother?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. So I didn't get the triangle ones at all. I got the little like 1-inch little plastic PVC figures, and I got the flip heads. I didn't get the full Megazord ever until the first wave of like retro figures came out in like early 2000s.
Like 2010 or something,
yeah.
I think.
Like I was in college and I was like, I have a job. But I got the Megazord, the mini one, where the Triceratops and the saber-tooth tiger.
Feet off or something?
Yeah, you can take the feet off, and then the shield came off, and you were like, "Wow."
I always
amazing.
remember thinking, like, whenever I saw that at somebody's house, I was like,
What poor person got this?
No,
it was me.
Because I was poor. But I remember, because the Megazord was the one glamorous thing I owned. I never got. I did somehow get the Dragon Dagger too later that year. Yeah, I don't even remember.
like
how
you
that
have
came
a
out. My brother got the Dragon Zord that came with the Green Ranger too. That was like his thing. And
Okay,
I was
rich.
like, yeah. Well, no, these were like my
Enjoy your
prized
McDonald's in the
possessions,
basement.
and I kept being like, "Can I have a Morpher?" And they'd be like, "No."
Are you crazy?
I had a friend who was like a very spoiled kid, who was like one of my best friends, but and we're still like best friends today. But when he was younger, his parents gave him like everything. It turns out because he was adopted and they didn't tell him. We found this out years later.
If we cover it up with all these presents, he'll never know that his parents are Escobars.
And they give him everything. So I'd be like, that's how we bonded. We met each other when he moved to town. He had he had a Power Ranger shirt on, and I went up to him and I remember being like, "Hey, new kid, cool shirt."
I like Power Rangers too.
9 years old, my voice is this deep. But I was like, wow, that's a cool shirt. I brought the Blade Blaster to school in a backpack, and if this 1994 had been 2014, I would not have finished.
No, 2004. Let's be honest. Like 2004, they would have been like, we have to have you talk to the officer.
I remember my teacher bringing the backpack out and being like, I don't think it's a good idea to bring things that look like guns to school. And I was like, I always think bad as it being a big learning moment where I was like, what were we thinking? What a bunch of...
No, you're probably like, well, sweetheart, let me tell you.
I'm like, Mrs. Johnson, that is not a gun. That
It's
is
a blade blaster.
Okay. It's
Stupid.
Energy. Like, are you a putty?
Why do you even have a degree?
No. No, yeah, I started watching Power Rangers. Like, I remember the commercials for like the original series, like starting, and I remember thinking, I'm gonna watch this show. This looks cool. And
see, I didn't even do that. Like, I remember, like, I would just watch stuff. I guess because of how my youth growing up, like, my parents were divorced. So, like, on weekends, I probably wouldn't watch TV. And it was like one random weekend where I was home and I was able to watch TV that I saw Power Rangers. Had I not been
Power Rangers
home,
was on the weekdays too in the morning before school.
I was up too early because my mom had to take me to daycare. And they wouldn't let us.
What was I doing at my house? No, because I went to daycare all the time too. Because my school was just really early in the morning. When the heck was Power Rangers? Isn't that a weird thing to think about now in 2020? Where you're like, what television was on in the middle of a day?
I remember
at
I would
7
get up.
a.m.
Sonic
yes,
Adventures
Sonic
was on.
Yeah.
And then I would have to go to the daycare thing, but I wouldn't watch it in the daytime. And then when I get home, Batman animated series would be on.
Yeah, Power Rangers was on after school too. It was one of those things where, when it first started, it was
Like, we'll put it on whenever.
Yeah, they were like, we'll have the Fox Kids block at the end of the day, and then because I remember it'd be like that, and then it would go into like Simpsons or something.
Animaniacs.
But it was no, I remember that turning on, and I remember telling my mom like, I want to be this for Halloween, and I was always like, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Where I was like.
It was so vastly different from anything I think on at that point for the first few seasons before anything else changed.
Well, it was also, it's all the things kids love. It was dinosaurs, but it was like
great,
like this crazy like robots and science and magic
weird
and
monsters.
all these things. And then, like, I'm not gonna lie, an attractive group of kids. So even when you're like 9 years old, you're like, these high schoolers are pretty.
Trini is gorgeous.
I know. It's always Trini taken too soon from us, but no, I look back on those days and I was like, man, I was definitely in love with Jason and did not understand when I was young.
You're like 5.
I'd be like, I'm gonna write my favorite Ranger's Jason, but really it's like it was Billy.
I'm 5 and writing fanfics. I mean, it's like, I agree. Like, it's one of those things where, like, it came at such a unique time for my youth. And you think, like, it happens every year for some group of children.
Well, here's the thing for you. There are people in this world. This happened to me. I met somebody. I worked with somebody a couple years back, and I was like, oh, how old are you? And I was like, you have been alive. Every day that you have been on this planet, the Power Rangers has existed.
Right.
And I was like, that's a weird thing that I went through, I guess so it started in 1993. I guess I was only 8 when it started, and I'm like, I remember a time when there were no Power Rangers. It was only Ghostbusters, and then there were Power Rangers. Like, and it's just one of those where it's like, it's crazy to think like Power Rangers has now been on. We're going on 28th season is in 2021, and
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that somebody born in 1993 is 28 years old, first of all, and you're like, and this franchise is going to be 30 on the horizon. I hope it makes it to 30. But
It will. I mean,
I feel like it can't not, right?
Hasbro, if has anything to say about it, they're just like, nope, we put so much money into it.
I don't know how the Nickelodeon deal works, but it's like I remember it on Fox, and I remember when it was canceled, and I remember when it
Disney?
went not canceled. It was never canceled on Fox. It was you already knew it was going to Disney before it even left Fox.
Yeah.
It was basically like, oh, see, and then I remember it on Disney. It was technically on like ABC.
You remember the reboot of Mighty Morphin with the weird animated effects?
Terrible. I don't care.
We'll talk about that some other time, but that was in college when that happened.
But, speaking of this, obviously, anybody out there listening to this probably knows that Power Rangers is based on a Japanese television show, the Super Sentai. Have you watched any of that?
I have.
I'm not. I know there are other podcasts that do like, this is this and this. I'm not. I don't. I am a Power Rangers fan.
Okay.
I don't mean this in a rude way, but I also. Have you ever thought like,
Derogatory tone.
well, 95% of the world gets Power Rangers and not Sentai, and that to me blows my mind that we took this one show that's been on for years longer than it was in America, before it was on in America, and then we're like, okay, well, we've got this. It's just an interesting idea where they take this footage and then they reformat the story as they see appropriate using this footage. And
appropriate's the right word, because that's called appropriation in the art world.
Yeah, and then it's made into this like major thing that now most of the world knows it as Power Rangers, and it's kind of just this crazy business model that has worked now for 27
this might be
years.
A sideline, like what was the 2017 Power Rangers movie? What was that called in like Japan?
I think it was just called Power. Well, because in Japan it's called Power Rangers.
Okay, but it's like the show
I don't think
is
they
not.
They don't like our version of it.
Okay,
Yeah, the show is called Power Rangers everywhere else.
so okay.
Yeah, I think it's.
I mean, I guess this shows how like
I think it's one of those where like
unaware
Iron
we
Man
are.
is called Iron Man.
Well, I think he's pretty much called Iron Man everywhere.
No, but you know what I mean. Like the Power Rangers, that's not their
Spider-Man.
name in Japan and
Right, so
in
that's why I'm
Japanese. But
asking. I'm like,
I
did
believe
they-
that
that movie
they
was
would
just
refer to
called-
us called Power. They would refer to them as called Power Rangers.
Okay.
It's a separate thing.
Well, because like in Godzilla, like Gojira for everything that has like the kind of like giant monster stuff, but like the Matthew Broderick Godzilla is just called Zilla because they're like, well, he's less because he was the American like Roland Emmerich garbage.
I don't know. Maybe that is something though. I'd have to look into.
That's
that,
just
I
something
guess,
I'm
but-
curious about. That's not like a thing I know anything.
But I'm
about.
never gonna do. I don't think it's ever gonna be a breakdown. It might be like, let's compare the plots. Like it might be just a quick like, oh, I read about what this version of the show was about.
Or
because
if,
for
like-
me, I am not one of those people where I'm like, well, in the Sentai, because I am strictly the American version of it, and not being like, I'm not trying to be ignorant or anything like that. But that is, for me, that's the beauty of this kind of show, where it takes something and it creates something entirely new. Sometimes it creates something very close. I just care about that. That's the sweet spot for me is Power Rangers.
Right. I mean, like, if anything, like, it might be if we're talking about a specific season, like, if I've seen the Sentai, it might be something where I can be like, oh, well, this is totally
this is
different.
weird in the season. Well, that's
so,
because
like, I've seen, the in space stuff in
yeah,
Sentai
and I
version.
guess that because that's a video game and not in
Right.
space.
Like,
right?
it's there's so many interesting things. And, like, Turbo is completely a comedy, whereas in America, most people regard it as a tragedy.
Yeah.
I mean, like it is what it is, but I've bought all the Shout Factory sets, and I've like having watched Kamen Rider and kind of like I've experienced some of like the just standard Japanese releases. So I can bring some of that knowledge, but I agree. Like, I don't necessarily think the thing that we are doing will need to cover that. It might be something that comes up, but it's probably not going to be our focus.
Yeah. I'd like to just kind of get more into the creation of the show and how that works and the season and stuff like
it's
that.
fascinating. Like you get that hardcover book and it's just like, oh, like Saban did this and this and this, and just like he worked his like kind of black magic to do this and like all this other stuff, and it's insane.
I don't think I told you about how I downloaded the workbook. I don't know what it's technically called, but it's these. It's from Power Rangers in Space, and it's the breakdown, like it's the pitch for the show.
No,
and
I'm looking at this on his computer.
This is actually the script for what became Countdown to Destruction. So that's one thing I downloaded.
Is this legal that you download, or are you on the dark web?
No.
Dark
This
web?
is like somebody released this, and this is the Mega Rangers element breakdown, and it's like how they break down the summaries.
Oh my
of what
god, it had the
happens in it.
texture of the paper.
And what's really kind of interesting about this too is like I've seen a workbook to the frequency of elements charts. So how often what appears in what episode? So they need to know.
These people did not have Excel because this is all on like a JPEG document that is.
This is probably just a printed out standard format. I mean, they'd probably been using this for about 10 years at this point.
Every season has a breakdown of repeated elements.
Yeah. So it is kind of fascinating too, and also some of the stuff.
No Japanese
changed.
footage will be used for villains. The only Japanese footage which will be used for Space season will be some of the Megazord.
What are you reading?
It's this paragraph here, number 3, will be used for the...
Into the microphone.
Sorry, I'm trying to read, but your computer is tilted. The only Japanese footage which will be used will be in the Space season will be used for the Megazord Monster Battleizer.
You see this too, right? The Power Dome set. Is the Power Dome, was that supposed to be the command center?
10 days
Alpha
or so.
will still appear in the show. I don't have an answer to whether the Mega Delta Zord belongs to the Silver Ranger. We don't have any footage yet, and we should also discuss whether... This is also pre-internet days, though, too, so this is what's kind of interesting. But...
Silver Ranger question ellipsis. What does that mean?
Yeah, so the stuff like this, like, when we get into this, I think this would be an interesting, like, how does the show get imported from Japan? Stuff like that, more than being like, why don't they use this story elements and this story elements? I mean, it's two different cultures. Some things don't ring true for us that ring true for,
and especially
for Japanese
like
audience.
some seasons, like America was just like, no, we're going to make our own Ranger.
I think when they get more, I won't speak to that for every season because I'm not an expert, but I think when the more creative the American makers of the show, or the New Zealand makers, or whoever, the Western people that work on it get, I think the more interesting it makes it. Like I don't know. Like I think about like RPM is a season I didn't see until when they put Power Rangers on Netflix, because it was preempted in Orlando when it was on, which was ironic considering the Power Rangers were appearing at Disney at that time. I was always like, how can you not be airing the show in the city to which the Rangers live? But I'm glad I watched that because I was astounded at some of the creative choices. But again, that's a season whenever the show is up against its back is against the wall, it takes the most creative decisions, and that's when you get stuff like In Space and Time Force and RPM.
SPD, I think it falls under that. Like, at least personally, you don't like SPD, but
I don't. I like Trip, and
I like one aspect of all of SPD.
I like Doggy Kruger, and I like it even more now after realizing that I didn't know that John Chewy was in the suit while he was recording. I just thought he did the voice, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. It's like it's like a visual overload sometimes. It's like it's but really when Disney was really leaning really heavily into nonstop explosions, and I'd be like,
but there's so many elements where you're just like, this is X-Files but with Power Rangers.
I guess I haven't seen it all, so I'm not gonna weigh in completely. I have like 10 episodes left.
I'm pushing my glasses up my nose and telling you, well, let me explain.
I am going through and like trying to watch any of the seasons I've made. I will say I've seen stuff from every season. I've seen almost all the more or less all the seasons, but some that have evaded me. Like I've seen very little of Jungle Fury. I basically saw the beginning, and I kind of saw some stuff along the way, and I've seen very little of Operation Overdrive. Another one that I saw the beginning, and I saw the anniversary episode and stuff. But so it's kind of one of those where I'll get back and watch. I was watching them all at one point. When I was finishing college, I would watch like 3 episodes a day at the gym or something, and I got right up into Turbo, and I hate Turbo so much that I couldn't even finish the 3-part. I think it's like 3 parts is the premiere. And I was just like, there are so many. I forgot about Bulk and Skull being turned into the monkeys.
Oh my God.
I forgot about, like, I don't like Justin, and sorry anybody that's a Justin fan, but I find his character so annoying. And
we'll get into when we talk about the Turbo Blu-ray release whenever we do that, but like Turbo is one of those things where that's kind of a weird, unique beast.
Just a lot of bad decisions being made at that time where they were like,
I think that's where like my
they were
drop
like, we
off
need to
was.
incorporate more children into this, but you're like, why did you mess with something that it's like this current phase right now where they feel like the kids always are in high school now again. And I was like, oh my gosh, they weren't in high school in Time Force, Lost Galaxy. I mean, they kind of were in space, but then they're like, forget it.
Well, even in Jungle Fury, they were like working a job. So like you didn't necessarily, you were more so seeing them working a job versus seeing them in school.
I would rather see young adults and remove the school element because you keep doing that. It's overplayed. And also I mean, yeah, it's because I'm getting older, but man, the kids they're casting are getting smaller and smaller, like skinnier and younger looking. That I am like,
see them working a office job, sitting on some sort of like ball.
No, but that's what I love about Time Force. They're like mid-20s. Like they're definitely. I mean, they're
questioning what they're going to do with their life.
Well, that's the thing. They're like, they're police officers, essentially, and they're like, what do we do? And then that's the other interesting aspect of SPD not SPD. I mean, SPD is interesting because they're at a cadet. So again, I guess they're technically students, but it's like
they're police academy.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. I definitely am like, but for me, students do work sometimes. Like I thought Dino Thunder is one of the best seasons, and I loved the chemistry of the kids. But it's not just the kids because Tommy was the ranger again, and Tommy was the teacher. And so like I like when it's like Mystic Force. They weren't high school students. They had jobs and lives, and but then they also had older people be Power Rangers. I don't know. It's one of those where I feel like we're in a mode right now where they're like, Power Rangers is only people under 21. And I'm like, no, Power Rangers are anybody that embodies that
I wonder
spirit.
if, because this is Beast Morphers right now, which when we're talking about this, Beast Morphers is about to go into season 2, right?
No, it already started.
Okay, so Beast Morphers season, if you haven't watched Beast Morphers season 2 is started. So is this the first Hasbro controlled season?
Yes, I think it's the first season without Saban's name on it.
So I wonder if that's
listed
something
as like a producer. I thought
they might go into that later on. Like they might be playing it.
Have you not seen the asides for season 28? And I know asides change, but the casting call for the next season is younger than Beast Morphers. It's like people that appear to be 17 to 21, and I guess Beast Morphers was 25 was the cutoff, and this one is
Power
like 21.
Ranger.
And I'm like, well, my thing is like this one could have been one where I was like, oh, 100%, they don't need to be in school or anything like that. I guess they weren't in school in Dino Charge, were they? No,
they were working at the like mall.
No,
museum
so
thing.
I guess they were like, I guess they haven't always been in school. It's just like Ninja Steel. I guess they're not. They're not in Beast
Ninja
Morphers
Steel, they
either.
wouldn't even need to be in school because isn't it supposed to be like a game show thing?
I guess Dinosaurs is returning them to school again. So it was like Ninja Steel, they were in school. Dino Knights, whatever they're going to call it, is. I think they're going to be in high school.
Dino Knights?
Because they want it to be.
Isn't that the name?
No, there is no name. That's just some people were wondering
If they call it Dino Knights and we are February that we're recording this, Dino Knights.
It's basically March, just so you know.
Well,
we're on the cusp of March.
No, this is a leap year, so we still have 2 days of February.
There's no human way this will be published before March.
No. But if it's called Dino Knights, A, that will be stupid. B,
it's Dynamite. Dino Knights. That's how they're going to morph. That's their morph call. I bet. Dino Knight, Dynamite.
We have moved so far away from us talking about our history with Power Rangers and just being like, I don't know.
Well, yeah. So, have you ever met in any of the conventions? Was your first Power Rangers convention at Ranger Stop Orlando in 2019?
So you and I started talking about this, I guess years ago at this point, like to start kind of like recording something, and this is the first kind of full on thing that we've tried to accomplish. But I had not gone to a convention when we started communicating about this. And Ranger Stop, you kind of talked me into. You're like, it's a small convention. It's, you get to meet some people. Like, I was not prepared for how small it was. To the point where multiple times I almost walked into the Black Power Ranger from Mighty Morphin, like
Walter Jones.
Yeah, like to the point where he's just like, "Hey, what's up?" And he fist bumped me, and I'm just like, "He fist bumped me! Oh my god, this is the greatest!"
Were you not with me when I went and he was just like walked up to our circle outside of the hotel, and I was just like, I don't know what to do.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, dude, the first night, that Friday night, I went back to the hotel and it was like Ranger Liz was out there who I was talking to, and then a friend of ours was with me. I was meeting 2 other friends there, and somebody else, and then he just like had a speaker on him and like a Bluetooth speaker, and he was just like bopping to music, and he walked up and was like, "Hey, what's up, guys?" And I was like,
Was he doing keto?
"Hey," and no one like they were like, "Hey," but no one was like blah 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 blah. So I was trying to be like, let me ask you casual questions, but it was just like, not questions, but I was like, this guy clearly wants to just be like, what's going on, in a normally human way. But I was like, I'm not prepared as a human to do this yet in that mode. But,
My brain would explode.
But that prepared me for what happened to me on Sunday when I bought John Chewy and Austin St. John drinks at a bar. So
let me lead in with that, because
cool.
yours is much more, because you were texting me while I was at work and you were like, guess what I did yesterday. So Saturday was the day I went. I bought a day pass for Ranger Stop.
Just so you know, Ranger Stop is a convention now that has happened since, I believe, 2013 was the first year. I think it could have been 2012, but it's yearly. It's usually the first weekend in November, right around there in that time frame, and it happens in Orlando, Florida, and it's like our East Coast. It's not version of PMC, which is the official Power Morphicon, which happens every 2 years, and it's its own thing, and it's much more intimate, smoller.
Yeah,
it's been
I guess
growing.
Intimate, I guess, is the word I would use to describe, because like I've seen they make announcements at Power Morphicon. Like,
well, because it is the official convention.
Right.
Yeah.
So whereas Ranger Stop is like much more intimate, like you can just happen to be walking down a line of artists and then just happen to see Power Rangers and they just start talking to you.
And if you just like hang out around the hotel, like not stalking people or anything, but yeah, it's a friendly, because it's so intimate, you really do start conversations with people. You'll meet people there, and I find that you're like, oh, next thing you know, like, we were out at the hotel, like on the patio, just chatting one night, and then like 5 Power Rangers are out there who just wanted to come and hang out with us, and we're like, yeah, sure.
Because they're like, well, I'm gonna
hang out
go
with you, green and
bar.
Yellow Mystic Force Rangers, sure.
Right. So I only bought the Saturday pass because like I was working Friday, so it didn't make sense for me to do that, and I had to do work on Sunday, so I went Saturday. Didn't meet up with you for a while, so I was there for a couple hours prior, and just randomly I was like, oh, I walked a corner and Walter Jones is right there, like and then like, you know, a bunch of other Power Rangers, and I'm just like, oh man, this is insane. Like walking around the corner, and when you showed up, like I did the panel, and that was crazy because like I was very close. It was not it was all a Mighty Morphin panel, and you know, you had Rocky there, you had Kat there, you had all that stuff. And then we walk out, and then, like, they're leaving from the panel, and they're just like, hey, what's up? I saw you in the panel. Like, you were in the audience. Like, it's crazy. And then I just had a conversation with Walter Jones, like, because nobody was around, and I got to tell him, I was like, I got into Power Rangers because I wanted, and, like, into art. Sorry. Because I'm in love with you. Because I...
Love to dance, and hip hop keto was what
I was like, I was a fat white child, and I really related to your character. But wanting to draw as a child, like I love art, but I wanted to try to draw the Black Ranger helmet and like all this other stuff. But if you get that in a coloring book, it's like, okay, color this black. It has black outlines. So my job as a child was trying to figure out how I could draw the Black Power Ranger and make it look accurate when your black outlines are colored in black. So like I told him that, and I was like, I'm an art teacher now. Like, this is crazy.
Why is the tattoo on your leg not the Black Ranger then? Why is it the Green Ranger?
I think like story-wise, like I've always more so aligned, like Green Ranger stuff I think has a better arc. I also like green more, but it's like art-wise, it's always been the Black Ranger, but also the Black Ranger got to wear the dragon shield.
I also have a Power Ranger tattoo too.
Also, when we started talking about this, I did not have a Power Ranger tattoo.
This, as far as anyone who listens to this podcast knows, you did.
So starting from right now.
Yeah, that's actually what I've been doing. We've been hiding the sound very well about me. Like, putting the tattoo
he's
on
been
here.
tattooing me personally.
Yeah. No, I've been to my first ever. I've been to all the Ranger stops except for one because I had a friend who selfishly got married to his beautiful wife that weekend.
What a jerk.
Yeah, what a jerk. Gosh.
When I say it like that, it sounds like it's me, but it's definitely not me.
Yeah. And then I finally was like, oh, whoop. So sorry, how unprofessional of me. I went to California for the first time in 2015 for a work trip, and I finally was like, you know what? This wasn't as hard as I thought it was. I can do this. So when PMC, which Power Morphicon, rolled around in 2016, I didn't know anybody going. I didn't know, but I knew I wanted to go, and I was like, I knew no one who liked Power Rangers like that. I knew nothing, and I was like, you know what? Whatever. I'm gonna buy this ticket, and I bought the ticket, and then somehow, through something, I had like met someone, and then they were like, "Oh, you can stay in the house," and I was like, but they lived in Orlando, and that's where how I met and Billy, and it was like one of these things where I was like, "Oh, they live here and whatever," and I was like, "This might be weird. I don't know this," but I hung out with them here, and then I was like, "Okay, they're nice," and then.
Not serial killers.
Yeah. I survived, so that was important, and and so then that went to there, and then they had invited somebody else that he knew, and then that other person and I are like really like he's one of my best friends now, and I he's come to Orlando like 10 times now to stay, and we've done some cosplay and stuff like that now. I do not have the body for a Power Ranger. I like to believe I do, so it's a lot of really, really tight undergarments. But
that was an awakening for me too, like with Power Morphicon, like seeing you guys, like Matt and Billy, like do the cosplay stuff. Like I was not prepared for what you guys had to put on for that.
Oh, it's a lot of stuff. You don't want any part of your body moving in weird ways. But I also think that Power Rangers is a very thing where like it's really like anybody can be a Power Ranger. If if the suit makes you feel powerful, then great. Like wear it. I don't care what your body looks like in the suit. I am not one of those people. It's like you're too skinny or you're too big or too whatever. Like
I don't feel like many people give you guff either. Like a lot of people like are super positive about being like, wow, that suit looks great. Like
I think it's 50-50. I think
maybe my experience.
No, I don't. I think the average person will be like, "Wow, great suit." Like I would react in the way you are, but I have met. Here's the thing: you can want to strive to be a great cosplayer, but a cosplayer is still just a cosplayer. They're not the person. So I hate people who are cosplayers that put other people down, or they'd be like, "Oh, it's not 100% accurate," or like, "Oh, you're a little bit too big," or "Oh, you're a little bit whatever." And I'm like, man, get over yourself.
They put work into that.
You're not the actor. You're not the person who was on the show. Also, like anybody can be a Power Ranger. So I really don't care. I just think like if you're happy and you love how you're dressing up, then that's great. I love to see people doing what they love. So I am not one of those people who's ever going to judge anybody, no matter your size or anything like that. So I am all about it. But there can be some really crappy people out there. I know some, and I'm not going to name them by names. But
we're aware of it. We don't approve.
Yeah. But yeah, so I went to that in 2016, 2018, and now I'm going in 2020 to the Power Morphicon. The problem with the 2021 is it's the weekend after Star Wars Celebration, which I also bought a ticket for because I've been to one of those and I enjoyed it. And I was like, I'll go again. And then they announced the dates for Power Morphicon after that. And I was like, yeah, that'll be super convenient to go, back to California a week later. But whatever, we'll see what happens. Power Rangers is my number one priority, so.
Power Rangers over Star Wars. I've lived that motto.
I know. It's a tough choice, but
my dad doesn't talk to me anymore.
Yeah. But have you talked to Walter? Did you meet any other Rangers?
He was like the big one I talked to. I think that was pretty much it. Like, that was the one where I was like, I'm going to do this. I have this one moment. Like, there's nobody around. I'm going to do this. Like, he was the one I wanted to make sure that I talked to.
Okay, you know who I met who I think is like the best person ever is Erin Cahill, who was Jen in Power Rangers Time Force. I met her years ago. Time Force is probably my favorite season of Power Rangers, but she was the most genuine, nicest, like warmest, outgoing person I have ever encountered, and she was very honestly her. Like that, it wasn't a character. She wasn't being polite, and she wasn't like. That's who she was, and she was so nice. And I always think about it. And I've met her now. I met her more than once because I met her again at another convention. She was so nice, and I'm like, so the next time her and Jason Font show up together, I think I'm gonna do a professional photo op with them because I only ever do like table photos, and like I'm not a big like autograph person. Like I was originally being like, oh, I should get autographs, but I'm like, I'd rather have the photo of me with them so I knew I was there at this place and time.
I mean, you might want to wait until after that book comes out.
Oh yeah, I know.
That would be, you could do all.
Well, I think we're gonna cut it here because it's been about 40 minutes or so.
Okay.
And I feel like we've said who we are, what we want to do on the show. We've clearly have a demonstration of love of Power Rangers. It has been it's weird to think that it is in my life. There have been few things around for me as long as Power Rangers has.
Right.
It's more than 2/3 of my life. That's a crazy thing to think about. Like, how many things in your life are with you that long, you know?
The things that have been around that long, like, how long have they been around that you cared about?
It's great. It's crazy to me. I am, and will always be a big fan of this show and all different versions and incarnations. And I am an open-minded individual to wherever it goes in the future. So I look forward to, as long as it moves forward, I'm happy to go. That's why I don't want it to get stuck.
Yeah.
But so hopefully we'll still be doing this show for a while and be able to talk about our feelings and thoughts on that and everything. But thanks for doing this with me, Ken.
Hey, as long as you want to talk about Power Rangers, I would love to talk about Power Rangers.
Well, as long as there's people out there to listen to us talk about Power Rangers. And you know what? Even if there aren't, I'll still talk to you about Power
us
Rangers.
Too.
Yes. So if you are enjoying the podcast, please subscribe. Check it out. We'll do more episodes. Like I said, feedback is always welcome. I love constructive criticism. Let's just not be mean. Be constructive.
And if you're super nice, I'll tell you about my DeviantArt Psycho Ranger comic that I did in high school.
Ooh. I don't have anything that creative. I did start filming a fan film once when I was like in high school.
Wait, I have nothing as creative, but I did start making a film. Let me tell you about that.
Yeah, it is. It's on Vimeo. It's not. It's on video cassette somewhere, honest to God, because my town, like, living 10 years behind where it was. Yeah, it's on Betamax. No,
let me tell you about my zip drive Power Ranger fan film.
I feel like all these things fit into Power Rangers so beautifully, though, so it's great.
I know, everything is acceptable at this point.
Yeah. But that'll do it for this episode of Podcast Rangers. Thank you and everyone out there for listening, and we will be back with another episode.
Hey, I had fun. Did you have fun?
I did have fun.
Cool.
You ruined the good, clean end, though.
No, I mean, I feel like
here we are, trailing off.
There you go.